Happy Friday! Today we are going to finish the Skee-Ball toy box by hooking up the logic for the game. The logic for this challenge is pretty simple, but there is a fair bit of it. But don't let that concern you, because again, it is pretty simple. Most of it is hooking up the scoring and what happens when the wrecking ball and the player go into the baskets. If a wrecking ball goes into the bottom basket here, down at this level, nothing happens, really. If it goes into this basket, then they get 1 point. If it goes into the second basket, they get 2 points. If it goes into the third basket, you get 3 points. And if it goes into the ESPN basketball hoop here, you get 4 points. Plus, you get a point for each time the player goes into one of these baskets. We also set off some party cannons that go along with the particular basket. When the player goes into a basket, we need to kill them and respawn them back here so they can run the course a second time and a third time and so on, up to 10 times. And we have to replace the wrecking balls at the bottom of the ramp here after every run. So that's everything that we need to do, and I know that sounds like a lot, but again, it's actually very simple stuff, and I'm going to walk you through this step by step, so don't worry. Oh, and while I'm thinking of it, I do have logic diagrams on my blog that go along with today's episode. The link is in the video description, so if you're following along and hooking this up in your own toy box, you may want to reference those diagrams as we go along. So let's start by reviewing the creativity toys that I have placed ahead of time to save some time. I have placed a locator here on the start pad, and notice the position of the little blue dot there on the front of that. It's facing that way. We also have another one sitting out right here. And we have a checkpoint, and notice where the little red dot is on the checkpoint there, right under my cursor. That tells you the player will be facing this way when they respawn. We have a challenge maker, a counter, a scoreboard, 2 logic gates. We have 2 racing gates here. Again, all of these are out of the Creativity Toys drawer, and notice the position of these gates. That's very important. Up here, we have a action button and a level starter and another logic gate and a replayer. We have a kill switch. Out of the gameplay toys, we have the sound effect generator. We already put down the party cannons and the ESPN basketball hoop last time. And then underneath the bins, we have some trigger areas. So I've placed one here and stretched it to go across the entire width of the circuit. We have a second one up here for basket number 1. This is trigger area 1 on the diagrams. The previous one there is trigger area 0. And again, this stretches across the width of the first bin, the first basket. Trigger area number 2 stretches across the width of basket number 2. Trigger area number 3 stretches across that area for that basket. And then we have another trigger area at the bottom that stretches across the entire open area at the bottom of this. And I just noticed I'm missing a block here. I don't know if I forgot to put that in there or if I deleted that accidentally. We'll go ahead and theme that to match the others. All right, so those are all of the toys that we have placed down. And probably the best place to start, I'm guessing, will be with the challenge maker. We'll start with the stuff that's pretty standard. So on the challenge maker, go down to the properties. Everything here is going to be left to the default except the end location. We're going to set this to be the locator that we're going to connect in a moment. Everything else stays the same. And we'll do a new locator connection. We're going to connect up to this locator as the starting position for the player. And then we'll connect another locator. That will be this one. This is where we'll put the player when the challenge is over. Okay? And then we're going to connect up to the scoreboard here. So on the scoreboard properties, I'm going to set the play 2 score to be the maximum we can set it, which is that. And the other properties will leave the same. So on the challenge maker, a new logic connection. On invites accepted, we will reset the scoreboard. On the challenge maker, a new logic connection when the game is started. We will activate the scoreboard. On the challenge maker, a new logic connection when the game is ended. We will deactivate the scoreboard. And on the challenge maker, a new logic connection when the game is ended. We also want to remove it from the display. I can't make a second connection to this. That's why we have the logic gate. So I will connect to that and input into that. And on output from the logic gate, we'll come over to the scoreboard and remove it from the display. And on the challenge maker, we will do a new score results connection and link that to the scoreboard so we can display the score at the end of the game. All right, so that's all the setup for the scoreboard, and that's pretty straightforward. One other thing we want to do, though, it's kind of good practice, is on the level starter, a new logic connection on catalyze. Bring that over here and do a remove display on the scoreboard. Okay. All right. The counter we are going to use to keep track of the number of times the player runs the course. And we're going to allow them 10 tries at scoring. So on the properties for the counter, I want to set the start reset count to 10, and we're going to count down. Because I'm setting that to 10, we need to set the target count to 11. I'm not really using the target count, but this just makes it a lot easier to then come down and set this to 10. All right. The other properties we are going to leave the same. All right, so on the challenge maker, new logic connection on invites accepted, we will reset the counter. And we'll handle the countdown of this and everything here in a moment. But that's all the setup that we need for that. All right, this logic gate here we're going to use to determine when to end the game. And every time the player dies, basically, and the counter is decremented, we're going to attempt to input into this gate to come over and complete the game. So I want this gate in the closed position initially. So on the challenge maker, a new logic connection on invites accepted, we're going to come and close this gate. Okay? All right. Excuse me. Now, when the player runs the course and they fall into this very bottom trigger area, we want to kill them and respawn them up at the checkpoint. So on here, we're going to do a new logic connection. When entered, by any, actually, so whether it's the player or a physics ball, I want to come up here to the kill switch and defeat whatever that is that fell into the trigger area. The other thing we're going to do on this bottom trigger area is a new logic connection when entered by player any. We will attempt to input into this gate. this logic gate right here. And initially that gate is closed. So the first 10 times the player runs this course, the first 9 times, it'll attempt to input into the gate. And on output from the gate, ideally, we would like to come over and complete the game. So we'll make that connection. But this gate will be closed every time, and so nothing will happen. But on the final run, we want to open that gate up. And so on the counter, we're going to do a new logic connection. When 0 is reached on the counter, so on the 10th run, we're going to come over and open this gate. Okay? So when the player falls into that bin on the 10th run, we'll be able to end the game. And the place where we want to do that, where we want to change the counter, is on this second gate here, the second racing gate. And I'll explain these gates in a moment. When the second gate is crossed by the player, we'll come over and decrement the counter. And we'll decrement it by 1. Because at that point, when the player passes through that second gate, they're committed to their run, and they're on their way. And so this is their attempt. So on the 10th run, when the counter reaches 0, that opens this gate. And when the 10th run is done and they fall into the bottom trigger area, that will send a signal through this logic gate to complete the game. So that's the structure of the game and what we're doing with the challenge maker. Okay? Now regarding the checkpoint, we're using that for the respawn point for the player. So that's why we're starting the player here. And as they begin, they're going to drive over top of that checkpoint, which will activate it. So when they die, that's where they'll respawn. When the game's over, we should probably clear that checkpoint. So a new logic connection on the challenge maker. When the game is ended, we'll come over here to the checkpoint and clear the checkpoint for all players. Again, this is a single player game, so we could just say player 1, but it's easier just to say all players. Okay, so that's the basic structure of the game. Now, there's 2 main things left to do at this point. The first is replenishing the wrecking balls on each run. The second is what happens when the player goes into the bins. So let's deal with the wrecking balls first. And what we're going to do, ideally, I would love to use the falling object generator to replenish the wrecking balls, to put them there the first time, and also to replenish them. The problem is that the falling object generator, it generates every type of physics ball except the towable wrecking balls. That option's not on the list. So for that, we're going to have to use a replayer instead. So on the replayer, we're going to set the playback interval to 0. All right. And the towable wrecking balls, you find those under the gameplay toys. If you scroll over to the, it'll be the right when you start in the drawer. Because you start over here on the toy box door. And if you scroll right, there's your towable wrecking ball. All right, so let's exit out of the editor. We're going to step on our replayer to get the menu in the lower right corner. On my Wii U, I press the bottom button, which is B, to start recording. And looks like it's already recording. Let me go ahead and hit B again. Okay, there it goes, I think. Now I don't know what that thing is doing. Come in here. Yeah, I don't think it's recording at all. Let's put down a fresh replayer because I don't know what that's doing. I think it was already in the recording state when I opened the menu, which is weird. We'll just put down a fresh one, just to make sure I don't mess this up. Again, take the playback interval to 0. All right, we'll step on the replayer. That's what I would expect to see. Press B to start recording. That changes the little icon underneath B from a circle to a square. And then we'll come into the editor, and we're going to place 4 towable wrecking balls. And I do not want to place these right here in the middle, because it makes it too easy for the player to just go up the line there and try to hit the basket. So we're going to put them off to the side a little bit. And unfortunately, we can't place these directly on the ground, so we have to drop them from up here. So I'm going to place the first one off to the side a little. Another one over here. One there, one there. Okay, so we'll drop 4 of them there. Step on the replayer to get the menu again. I'm going to press B to stop recording and A to clear. Be sure to only press the clear button once. And that took them out of the toy box. So we want to start the replayer in the cleared state. And we're going to use this logic gate to protect the replayer so we don't clear it twice. And since this is starting in the cleared state, I want this to be in the closed state. So we're going to come over to our level starter, do a new logic connection on Catalyze, close the logic gate. And so that we don't have to save our toy box and exit and reload, we'll just use this button to invoke the level starter. So I'll come out of the editor, press our button. Now that logic gate is in the closed state. All right, and how this is going to work now. We have 2 racing gates here. On the first racing gate, we will attempt to clear the replayer. That'll take the old balls out, if there are any. And on the second racing gate, we will do a playback on the replayer, which will put a fresh set of balls in there. So by the time the player starts down the slope, we should have some fresh wrecking balls down there for them to go get. When they pass through the first racing gate, we want to try to clear the replayer. So on this racing gate, we're going to do a new logic connection. When this is crossed by the player, we will attempt to input into this gate. And the first time they run this, this gate is going to be closed because the level starter will have closed it. And so nothing will get out of this logic gate. The signal won't go through. And on the signal for this, we want to do on output, we want to clear the replayer. But the replayer is in the cleared state initially. This gate is closed, so that signal won't get through to the replayer, which is good. You don't want to clear a replayer that's already been cleared. Okay? And on the replayer, we'll do a new logic connection. When this is cleared, we want to close the logic gate. This is for the subsequent runs through those racing gates. Because again, we don't want to clear this twice. Okay? And then on playback, and I'll explain these in a moment. So on the second racing gate, when they drive through this, so when this is crossed by player, then we're going to come up to the replayer and do a playback. Okay? And on the replayer, a new logic connection. When this is played back, we will open the gate. All right, so the very first time the player runs this, on run number 1, they start off through here, they drive through the checkpoint, they cross the first gate. We're going to attempt to input into this logic gate, but the gate is closed, which means the replayer will not be cleared, which is good because the replayer is already in the cleared state. All right. Then they pass through gate number 2. This does a playback on the replayer, which puts the wrecking balls out here along the bottom of the ramp. All right. The player then runs the course, and 1 or 2, they pick up a wrecking ball, maybe they drive another one up into the super cannons. So maybe 1 or 2 of the wrecking balls get played and destroyed. The player dies in that bottom trigger area and respawns. Okay? So run number 2. They drive through this first gate. It's going to attempt to input into here, and this time the signal will get through, because when we did the playback, that opened the gate. So now the signal gets through, we clear the replayer, which takes the old wrecking balls out. Then they drive through gate number 2. That does a playback on the replayer, which puts a fresh set of 4 wrecking balls out there. And so they run the course. 1 or 2 of those gets deleted. They respawn. Again, they drive through this gate. The old wrecking balls are taken out because the replayer's cleared. They hit the second gate. They get a new set, and so on. So that's how that's working. And the purpose of that logic gate is really so that if the player drives through the first gate slowly, stops and backs up for some weird reason, we don't clear that replayer a second time. Okay? It's not a likely scenario, but we have to protect against it. Because if the replayer is cleared twice, it corrupts the replayer. So that's a bug that we want to protect against. So that's the purpose of that logic gate, and why we have 2 gates here. First one takes out the old balls, the second one puts the new ones in. Hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, and then the last part of this is what happens on the scoring for the bins. And this is pretty straightforward, but there's a lot here to hook up. Let's deal with this bottom bin here first. Okay, this is kind of the default bin where if the ball misses all of the other 4 bins, this is the default place where it goes. There's no scoring that happens on this, but we do want to play a sound effect to let the player know that's where the ball ended up, because they can't see it as they're playing the game. So on this bottom trigger area, which is trigger area 0 on your diagram, we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by physics ball. Okay, we're going to come up to our sound effect generator up here, and under the musical category we're going to play funny failure. And by the way, on the properties, make sure you turn off 3D sound at speaker or locator so that you can hear that sound no matter where you are in the toy box. All right, so that's that first bin down there. That one's pretty easy. On the other bins, let's go to bin number 1. So on here, we want to hook this up so that when a ball goes in here, we play the party cannons in front of that bin. So I'm going to show you how to hook up 1. You can do the rest yourself. So on trigger area number 1 for bin number 1, we do a new logic connection when entered by physics ball. We're going to come over to the party cannon in front of it, the first one here, and do a grand finale. Make that same connection for the other 2 bins in front, or the other 2 party cannons in front of that bin. For the trigger area on bin number 2, make that same connection to the 3 party cannons in front of that bin. For trigger area number 3, on bin number 3, make that same connection for these 3 party cannons. And then on bin number 4, which is the ESPN basketball hoop, this one's a little bit different. We do a new logic connection when basket is scored by physics ball. And we're going to come up here to this party cannon and do a grand finale. Make that same connection for the other 2 party cannons. So that's all the party cannons and hooking those up. Okay? All right, back to the trigger area for bin number 1. We also want to play a sound effect. So on here we'll do a new logic connection when entered by physics ball. We will come up to our sound effect generator, and under general we'll play the cash register sound. Okay. On trigger area number 1 for bin number 1. For the scoring, we'll do a new logic connection when entered by physics ball. We'll come over to our scoreboard, and we will increment by 1 the score for player 1. And if the player happens to fall into that bin, we'll also give them a point. So new logic connection when entered by player any. I could just say player 1, but because again it's a single player game, but we'll just do player any. And we will increment by 1 the score for player 1. Right. And you'll notice that made multiple connections. If you look under here for that trigger area, that's the connection I just made. It added connections for players 2, 3, and 4. Again, this is a single player game, so you can choose to leave those alone if you want, or you can delete these 3 auto-generated links. They're not really needed. It's up to you. Okay. On trigger area number 2 for bin number 2, new logic connection when entered by physics ball. This time we're going to play another sound. This will be a different sound, because the player may not see which bin the ball goes in. So the different sounds will give them something different to hear. For bin number 2, we're going to play musical fanfare. Okay? And that just, the sound lets them know, did they go into this bin, or this bin, or this bin, or the basket, just in case they don't see it. For the scoring on bin number 2, on trigger area number 2, we'll do a new logic connection when entered by physics ball. Come over to our scoreboard, and we will increment by 2 the score for player 1. And if the player falls into that bin, we'll give them a point as well. New logic connection when entered by player any. Come over to the scoreboard and give them a point. And this was the scoring that was set up in the original toy box. If you want to give the player the same number of points as the ball, you can do that. But I'm going to stick to the original toy box, which just had a single point for a player going in a bin. Alright, on trigger area number 3 for bin number 3, new logic connection when entered by physics ball. For that bin, we're going to come up to our sound effect generator, and under musical, we'll play the charge sound. For the scoring on trigger area 3, new logic connection when entered by physics ball. We'll go over to the scoreboard and we'll give them 3 points. Increment by 3 the score for player 1. So you can see these are simple connections, but they're kind of tedious and there's a bunch of them. So it's not hard, it just takes a little bit of time to set all this up. On trigger area 3, a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll come over to this scoreboard and we'll give them a point. Increment by 1 the score for player 1. So as long as the player makes it into one of the baskets and doesn't fall into this default hole down here, they'll get a point. All right, on the final bin, which is the ESPN hoop, we'll do a new logic connection when a basket is scored by a physics ball. Come over to our sound effect generator, and on here we'll go down to the musical category and we'll play the Royal Fanfare, the biggest musical flourish we can give. And for the scoring, new logic connection when a basket is scored by a physics ball. You'll notice there was no option there for a player. We'll come over to the scoreboard, and we will increment by 4 the score for player 1. There's no option there for a player to fall through that, so I can't score anything for the player, but as it turns out, the player can't really get into there anyway from this super cannon, because the target for that is going to drop them right here at this point, and gravity will take over from there, and the best the player can do is hit this bin. So I'm not going to worry about the fact that this has no option for a player going through it. Alright, and with that, I believe all of the logic connections for this are done. We have all of the bins hooked up to all of the party cannons and the sound effect generator and the scoring. We've got the racing gates hooked up to the replayer to replenish the balls when we go through. We got the checkpoint hooked up. We got all of the stuff hooked up here for the challenge maker. So at this point, I would recommend saving your toy box and then try out the challenge. Make sure everything works. And I would play through the challenge a couple of times to make sure that you can replay this game as many times as you want. And once you're done with that, then you can move these Creativitoys over here underneath the terrain, save your toy box again, and you'll be done. Well, that's all for me today. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe for more classic toy box recreations like this. And if you have a favorite classic toy box from 1.0 or 2.0 that you missed that you'd like to play again, let me know in the comments. I have already recreated Maze of Hearts and Hidden Worlds. Those will be coming up next, but I'm looking for ideas of what I can do after that, so let me know. Thank you for watching, and take care.